This car shouldn't need too much introduction. Tesla Model 3. It's the reigning world champion in terms of EV sales. Audi, BMW, Mercedes, luxury brands that are all desperately vying for its title. But now we have the first serious EV challenger from mainstream car maker Hyundai, the IONIQ 5. This is very much a battle for the hearts and minds of tech-loving and future-conscious buyers. So we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to compare the Model 3 and the IONIQ 5 over 10 rounds, with each round focusing on a core area of the EV experience. So of course we're going to look at the usual areas such as boot capacities, interior presentation and quality, and of course the driving experience, but we're also going to look at the clever technology that each of these cars offer. Before we get stuck into the 10-round comparison, however, let's take a subjective look at the vehicle designs, as they're very different. The IONIQ 5 looks like large-scale metallic origami, all chiselled panels and creases, and combining with fantastic details such as pixelated cubic LED headlights and taillights, aggressive door strakes, flush door handles, and the first clamshell bonnet to feature on a Hyundai production car. Don't be fooled by the short overhangs and 5-door body style. This is a super-sized hatchback that's longer than Hyundai's own Tucson mid-size SUV, with a massive 3-metre wheelbase longer than that of its company's Palisade 8-seater SUV. Tesla's mid-size sedan is not much longer, though looks almost plain in the IONIQ 5's company. The Model 3 looks elegant from some angles, but awkward from others. Or maybe you think we should have gone to Specsavers. Tell us in the comments below. Ding ding! Seconds out, round 1. Okay, round 1, pricing and features, so a pretty important contest. Now, we've got the Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus, which is the base model. Now, that costs just $59,900 after a bit of price cutting earlier this year, so very cheap. With drive-away costs, it's about $64,600. Now, that compares with the entry IONIQ 5 rear-wheel drive. That costs $71,900. So, yeah, in the RRP is quite a bit of difference. Again, another $4,000 or so in drive-away costs for that. So the Tesla is the only model here that qualifies for the best EV incentives in Australia, which is New South Wales, where we're shooting at the moment. So you can save about $5,000 there, and that will take the Model 3 base model back under $60,000. So that's pretty good. However, this is not quite a straightforward fight, because we have the base model of the Tesla, where the IONIQ is priced more like a high-spec Highlander. So, for example, key standard features that you get on the IONIQ that you don't get on the Tesla: 20-inch alloy wheels, Bose audio, recliner front seats with leg rest and heating, ventilation, leather appointed upholstery and trim, heated steering wheel, heated rear seats, and there's also an extra year of factory warranty. Standard key features on the Tesla that you don't get on the Hyundai: double rather than single wireless phone chargers, smartphone app functionality, and that's about it. So the IONIQ is actually equipped more like a performance version of the Model 3, and that costs about $86,500. Now, there is a cheaper version of the IONIQ 5 coming next year, we believe, which will cost about $60,000 to $65,000. All right, next we're going to look at how you access the two cars. Now, with the Tesla, there's actually a couple of ways. You've got your Tesla key card here, and you put it against the door pillar. That unlocks the car and door handle, and you lock it again, doing the same thing. But you can also do the whole process through your phone and the Tesla app, which is really cool. So you press the unlock button, it does the same thing. There you go, it's open, and you can lock it. Now, what I really like is that you can actually pair your Tesla card to your phone, so that you can actually just dispense with your Tesla card and you just operate your whole car. You can start it with your Tesla app. So more of a traditional key fob with the IONIQ, but you can still just put it in your pocket like so, and you walk up to the car. Hey presto, the flush door handles pop open. So not quite as clever as the Tesla, but still quite fancy. The Model 3 is essentially a sedan, but it comes with a tailgate style boot lid, and when you open it up, well, look at that. That's a really long boot, 561 litres according to Tesla, and that probably includes this big bucket area down here under the floor. Reasonably wide as well, so you can definitely get some decent sized suitcases in here. This is your Tesla pack, which we open up and connector cables, including an adapter for a conventional household socket at home. Tyre mobility kit, well, you've actually got to pay extra for that. So if you get a flat tyre, you're either hoping that you paid for that kit or you've got to call your Tesla service centre. Right, over to the Ioniq. Very different. So this is more of a hatchback style vehicle, kind of sort of crossover. So much more of a conventional tailgate. Boot is quite shallow, but Hyundai quotes 527 litres. So that is comparable with a mid-size SUV. So that's still a pretty decent space. You can see there's some good width to it. You get a cargo blind here, which you can remove if you don't want that. You get some extra bits and pieces, 12-volt socket that you don't get in the Tesla. And then under this floor, I'm sure I'll lift up like this. Down here, a bit of underfloor storage space. You've got connector here, and again, that's for your household socket. We'll talk about recharging later. This little packet, which we're going to talk about later as well. And you do get a tyre mobility kit in the Hyundai as standard. Lose a bit of space here. That's part of the cooling system for the big battery. Both of these EVs have a big advantage over your regular ICE car by offering frunk space in the front under the bonnets, where you usually have a bulky internal combustion engine. So for the Model 3, we've got 88 litres of space here, and we've got a trusty business backpack, and you can see we can slot that way, turn it around that way, and we've still got some extra space for something else. For the Ioniq, well, first you have to lift up this lid. Not too annoying, but slightly less convenient. And you can see that's nice and deep, 57 litres. So yeah, not quite as much space as in the Model 3's frunk. Still quite useful, and also more useful than the all-wheel drive version of this Hyundai, because that's only 24 litres, and that backpack doesn't fit in there. Legroom in the back of the Model 3, well, it's pretty decent, but it does share a problem with the larger Model S. The rear bench is set too low, the cushion isn't long enough. So even for me at an average height, I'm in a very knees up position here, so lacking under thigh for longer journeys. Toe space, that's also a little bit tight. You'd be asking your driver or front passenger to boost the seat height a little bit. Yeah, headroom. I mean, it's not too bad for me, but if you're 5'10" or taller, I'd say you're going to be very conscious of the roof. As nice as this dual pane glass sunroof is, especially this rear section that slopes back into the tailgate, very pretty. Storage, we've got center armrest, a couple of cup holders, mat pockets, very generous door compartments here for a bottle and some other bits, air vents, 2 USB-C ports, very modern. Flat floor, but I don't think you're going to get an adult into this middle seat. It'd be way too squeezy. First thing to mention about the Ioniq 5's rear seat is this huge rear door. It's really wide, and that provides great ingress and egress to the car. And then once back here, my word, you feel properly pampered. There is an absolute abundance of legroom. Headroom is pretty generous. We've got electric adjust on the bench, 60/40, and you've even got recline with a manual lever. So yeah, you can really just set the perfect position for yourself back here. We've got rear window blinds, we've got seat heating, and then you've got space for cups and bottles, so cup holders there, integrated bottle holders in the door compartments, netted pouches, little storage area just down here, then a couple of USB ports, so A rather than the more modern C variety. Flat floor just like the Tesla, but the difference here is that you could get 3 adults across here. So really wide bench, and you've also got ISOFIX points too for child seats in the outboards, but top tethers across the whole bench. And another thing I really love about this rear seat, the expansive glass sunroof, and if it does get a little bit too hot, you've got a blind which marries together in the middle quite nicely, I think. Up front in the Model 3, and well, this is super minimalist design. It makes Scandinavian styling look cluttered. It's all about this very wide dash and completely dominated by this central 15-inch touchscreen, which is fantastic. It's got loads of great features on it. You've got all your little menu options down here. Most of it if you want to control various parts of the car. You've got your lighting, your locks, display, driving modes if you're going here, and a couple of cool features that we know from other Teslas. You've got toy box. You go in there, you can have a sketch pad. Click on that, sketch on. Oh look, here's something I drew earlier. My 5-year-old son could probably do something better than that, but let's move on. Entertainment, let's go in there. Oh look, you can have a game of chess, or my favourite, asteroids. Okay, push to start. I don't have a coin, but I think it's just going to let me. Here we go, player one. All right. Oh, it's even got the old sound effects. It's really, oh dear. Yeah, anyway, enough of that, because I'm clearly a bit rubbish from how I used to be. But anyway, you get the drift. But look, you get this beautiful map here on the left-hand side, and then when you're driving along, you have more of your driving information over here. But we'll get a bit to that stuff later on. I'll tell you a bit more about the cabin, because there were some updates at the end of 2020 for the Model 3, and that included a very smart feature, which was dual wireless phone chargers. So not one that you get in many cars these days, but two. And you just put it there, and I can tell you from the experience of the days that we've been in this car, the inductive charging is really fast, faster than your average wireless phone charger. Storage, well actually I'll show you something about the glove box, which you actually open via this touchscreen. I told you everything is controlled by this touchscreen. That's pretty cool, because there's no actual handle for the glove box otherwise. Storage, that's pretty good. You've got good door compartments down here, spaces for bottles, twin cup holders here. Slide this section over, and nice deep section there, and also under this armrest you've got another area here, and there's also a couple of USB-C ports. Up front in the IONIQ 5, and a very different approach in design to any other Hyundai really, and different to the Model 3. So we've got some more conventional approaches to the dashboard. So here we've got a digital dedicated climate control panel, which I quite like because it just gives you that more immediate access to fans and temperature control, recirculation, that kind of thing. Shortcut buttons here too for the touchscreen. And speaking of touchscreen, so where the Tesla has this huge 15-inch touchscreen, we get two displays here that are graphics. Left side is 12-inch infotainment display, and then 12 inches again for a driver display. The interface, well, it's actually quite familiar from other Hyundais and Kias in the way that it's laid out, the menu operation, but the graphics are slightly different. There's also a white coloured background, and a new function on this car as well is the EV page. You press that, and that gives you access to additional info such as nearest recharging station, and also the range that you got left on the car, but you also get that on your driver display, because that's something that's very important when you're driving an EV. Now, something you may have also noticed by looking at this car, completely flat floor up front as well, so it's very different from the Model 3. And here's a special feature for the IONIQ 5, a sliding center console, which Hyundai's marketing people call the universal island. So you just pull this lever here and it slides completely backwards, so that kind of gives your rear passengers access to the console if they want it, or it just makes more of a walkway through here if you want to get out of the car on the other side. Maybe you're in a very busy car park, you slide it back. So it's about 14 centimeters of travel, very useful and brilliant for storage. Move this armrest out of the way and you've got this open storage area here. You can stick in a pair of shoes, a mini bag, charging slot down there, a couple of USBs, a couple of cup holders, and your armrest also doubles as a storage tray here. Another little storage area down here with a 12-volt socket, another USB port there, and I think my favourite part of the storage in this car is the sliding glove box, which I can tell you fits a 13-inch MacBook Pro. Tesla proudly labels the Model 3's interior all vegan, though Hyundai plays an even bigger sustainability card with eco-compressed leather appointed seats and trim, bio-painted interior surfaces, and a fully recyclable door insert dubbed Paperette. The Model 3's fit and finish isn't its greatest asset, it has to be said, though it was better than the last example we tested. Back over in the Ioniq, and the impressive quality and presentation is on a level somewhere between the Tucson and the posher GV70 SUV from Hyundai's luxury brand Genesis. One of the Ioniq 5's party tricks is its vehicle-to-load feature, which turns the Hyundai into a portable 3.6 kilowatt power source. Plug a special adapter into the exterior charging port and a 250-volt, 15-amp socket awaits your choice of power tool, camping appliance or even laptop. In some other markets, the Ioniq 5 is even more useful, providing a socket under the rear seat to turn the car into a rolling power bank. Hyundai says it is also investigating vehicle-to-grid compatibility, where its EVs would contribute to a household's energy supply. The Model 3 has reportedly been engineered for bi-directional charging, but no official word yet from Elon. The Tesla app is an integral part of the Model 3 ownership experience. Apart from allowing your smartphone to unlock and start the car, among other handy features, it can open the tailgate and frunk, pre-warm or pre-cool the cabin, and find your nearest supercharger, then send the location to the nav system. Brilliant. No can do in the Ioniq 5. Hyundai does have a Blue Link app service, but it's not yet available in Australia. The smartphone-based features don't look as comprehensive as Tesla's either. Tesla then seals the deal in this round with over-the-air software updates, which can continually improve the Model 3 in various ways. Before we get stuck into the driving, a very quick technical overview of both cars. Tesla is very cagey about its vehicle specifications, but according to the reputable website EV Database, the Model 3 Standard Range Plus has a 52.5 kilowatt-hour battery and a rear electric motor that produces an estimated 239 kilowatts and 420 newton meters. Hyundai is completely open about the Ioniq 5, so we can tell you it has a 72.6 kilowatt-hour battery at its heart, with a rear electric motor good for 160 kilowatts and 350 newton meters. Although yes, that looks kind of low in comparison to the Model 3's outputs. Driving the Model 3 is such a distinctive experience, just from the way that you start the car, whether it's by the key card or just acknowledging your connected phone, because then you literally just get in the car and you pull the transmission stalk down to drive and you're away, as simple as that. Then the other aspect is that all your functionality, all your driver information comes from this dominant touchscreen, because on this display here you've got this real-time view of traffic all around you, including pedestrians. And look at that, you can even see a ute being depicted here. That's because the Model 3 is using all its exterior sensors and cameras. Of course, that all ties in with the self-driving system. As I said earlier, that is not fitted on our test car here, but we do have the basic autopilot system, so adaptive cruise control with self-steering. Although when we tried it on the freeway, it didn't like us keeping our hands off the wheel. You are supposed to keep your hands on the wheel, and it gave up after one point, started slowing the car. I re-accelerated, and then when I tried to re-engage the autopilot, it told me off via a message on the screen saying it would not allow me to have that function for the rest of the drive. I was a bit sad about that. But anyway, it's back to how this car drives. The downside of the touchscreen is that it can be distracting, because you've got your speedo here is out of the corner of your eye, so you're still having to glance across there rather than straight ahead at an instrument cluster or even an HUD. You know, a head-up display should be standard on this car, I think. And then there's the other thing where when you go to get certain functions via the touchscreen, they come up in sub-windows. You select the function that you want, whether it's changing a driving mode, but then those windows don't disappear. They stay there until you press the X on that window to make it shut off. So again, that's just like another case of being an unnecessary distraction. So via the driving mode screen, which I'm going to get up here, reach across, see I've got to avert my eyes from the road again. Anyway, so looking out the corner of my eye and trying to drive as safely as possible, I can see that acceleration gives you the option of chill and standard, so I'll press chill. So that just makes things a little bit more relaxed when you're pressing the throttle pedal, but I do prefer the standard. And let's give it a push. Oh, oh yes, that is really perky acceleration. So we have a claim of 5.6 seconds for the 0 to 100 km/h sprint for this Tesla, and if you buy the performance model you can go as fast as 3.3 seconds, which is just kind of crazy, really. Honestly, this feels more than fast enough. The throttle response is absolutely lovely, and even the regen braking, so when you lift off the throttle pedal like so, it's not that aggressive. There you go. Yeah, it's kind of nice and gradual, and you can do the one pedal driving trick of EVs, so you'll come up to a set of traffic lights, just roll off the accelerator and to a stop, and then we take off again. And you can play around with your stopping modes even, so if you prefer the car to just continue rolling forward and you use the brake pedal itself, you can do that. Or there's another mode, creep, where it kind of just keeps sort of inching forward, but I just prefer the hold mode, which is much better. What about ride comfort? No adaptive dampers on this car. I don't think that's necessarily a big issue. The low speed ride, I would say, look, it's not particularly firm, but it's also not particularly smooth. The suspension could do a better job of filtering out bumps, but the car does feel more supple the faster you go, and on freeways this is a lovely car to be driving in. Just got to remember that on freeways your range will get zapped more because you've got none of that regen braking, feeding some energy back into the battery. The steering is also a highlight in this car. The Model 3 steering, just 2-point turns lock to lock. That is so fast. So it just makes it feel really nice and direct. And it's also consistent. It's just really smooth, buttery smooth, I would say. And the turning circle is also fantastic. So it's just a really nice car to drive around. And you can also play around with the steering mode, so you can have a comfort mode, so you can make the steering go a little bit lighter. There's a sport mode. Now, speaking of sport modes, the Model 3 on a twisty road drives almost how you could imagine an electric Porsche Cayman might drive. Not so much because of the immersive driver experience that this Tesla gives you, but more about the front end. It feels so light and it makes the handling really pointy. And it also comes from the fact that the bonnet is really nice and low and you can see the tops of the wheel arches. So you just kind of go through these twisty corners and it's really nice. It's actually quite enjoyable. The only thing I say is not so good about the driving experience is when you do use the brake pedal, it is a bit on the stiff wooden side. Into the IONIQ 5 now, and the first thing you notice, the driving position is so different to the Model 3s. The Tesla's is much more of a conventional sporty sedan driving position, where this is a bit of that halfway house between a hatchback and an SUV. So the seating is quite elevated even in the lowest setting of the electric adjust. But the seats themselves, very comfortable, more support than the seats in the Tesla, both on the cushion and the seat backs. And all-round vision, yeah, I think it's probably a little bit better than it is in the Tesla. You can adjust the level of regenerative braking via the paddle shift levers behind the steering wheel. So we can have pretty much non-existent regen braking in level 0, where we're now pretty much freewheeling. We go up to level 1, just to bring in a little bit of slowing, level 2 and level 3. Level 3 a little bit more aggressive, but still quite pleasantly gradual. And then you got the full iPedal mode, where you can just drive around and let the car come to a complete stop. So not touching anything at all. There we go, not touching the brake pedal. And then when you need to get underway again, just press the accelerator pedal. Nice and easy. You have some driving modes to play around with in the IONIQ 5, and you do that by pressing this drive mode button on the steering wheel. And if you're in Eco, that gives you the best range because it dulls the throttle response. So trying to force you not to use so much energy. You can go into normal, your standard mode, which is actually my preference because the throttle is still lovely and responsive, you know, giving you that instantaneous torque delivery that we love with EVs. Not quite as delightfully perky as the Model 3s, but it's still pretty good. And then if you want it to all be a little bit more urgent, you've got a sport mode here, and oh, there you go. That's quite quick, and it's probably more of a match in the sport mode for the Tesla's default feel. But even so, this rear-wheel drive, 0 to 100, 7.4 seconds, so it is quite slow. It's nearly 2 seconds slower than the Model 3. But if you get the all-wheel drive model, that's another $4,000 or so, but it does give you quite a bit of extra performance. So that gives you an extra electric motor up front and all-wheel drive, and extra power, 225 kilowatts instead of 160, much more torque. And we've driven that all-wheel drive model, and we can tell you the acceleration on that, particularly if you go in the sport mode, which permanently engages both electric motors. It's real pin you back in your seat acceleration. It's really exhilarating, even if it's not as quick as the Model 3 performance. Not so acceptable is the IONIQ 5's lane keep assist system, which, like other Hyundai models, is just way too aggressive. Even if you're pretty central in your lane, it flashes away like it is doing now, and it's tugging at the steering wheel. It's quite annoying. So I just press this button on the steering wheel to turn it off. I do that every time I get in this car because it just becomes quite annoying. When it is off, the steering still isn't perfect. You can feel quite a bit of resistance when you turn it away from the straight ahead position. So it's not as natural, not as fluid as the Tesla steering. It's also quite a lot slower, 2.7 turns lock to lock, and you do have a lot more arm twirling when you're going around roundabouts, for example, compared with a Model 3. But I guess it's probably something you do get used to if you're just the owner of this car. Those 20-inch wheels may do a lot for the exterior design of the IONIQ 5, but they don't do a huge amount of favours for the ride. It's not terrible, but it is quite firm, and a lot of the time the ride does feel quite fidgety or lumpy. It's not very often where it feels like the car is settled. You can enjoy the IONIQ 5 on a country road. It's not quite as sporty as the Model 3, and you also have to bear in mind that it weighs several hundred kilos more than the Tesla. This is quite a heavy car, 2 tons in rear-wheel drive form, 2.1 tons in the all-wheel drive. But the steering is better when you're turning it frequently for a succession of corners, as long as you've got that lane keep assist off. There's some pretty good traction, although if you provoke the throttle pedal in the rear-wheel drive, the back end can step out a little bit, but nothing scary. The stability control systems all make sure everything all stays in check. And another thing in the favour of the Hyundai, the brake pedal feel. When you are actually using the brake pedal, it's got a much better way of modulating, much better feel than the Teslas. Battery ranges based on Europe's WLTP rating are extremely close, with the IONIQ 5's 451 km a fraction better than the 448 km quoted for the Model 3 Standard Range Plus. Forget getting close to those ranges if plenty of freeway driving is involved. Achieving 400 plus kilometres is possible though if you keep these EVs in the cities and suburbs where they can use regen braking to top up their batteries. The Model 3 proved to be slightly more efficient on longer drives on the open road. The IONIQ 5 offered slightly better range around the suburbs. Tesla's supercharger network gives the Model 3 a big advantage on the east coast of Australia, with fast charging options looking almost abundant within the country's otherwise immature charging infrastructure. The IONIQ 5 may be able to be recharged faster, but it's not a huge advantage, while the ultra-rapid 350 kilowatt DC stations needed to take advantage are thin on the ground. Still, most EVs are charged regularly at home using wall boxes, a recharging process that takes about 6 hours with both the Tesla and Hyundai. The IONIQ 5 has put up a great fight, trading blows with the world's most popular electric car. And you know what? It's not just an admirable Hyundai, it's actually a genuinely desirable one with that retro-futuristic styling and a fairly premium-looking lounge-like interior. We're not sold on all aspects of the Tesla Model 3's interior, but there's a reason why this car has won the majority of our 10 rounds. It's a highly satisfying drive combined with next-level EV ownership, the Tesla app, the over-the-air updates, and of course, that unrivaled supercharger network. The cheapest Tesla, we think, delivers a technical knockout. Now, if you enjoyed this video, and we hope you did, do give us a thumbs up on the icon above. And of course, if you want to see more Wheels videos, click the subscribe button.